Hello everyone. Today, we'll be discussing the 2013 sci-fi film Real Playing Game. The story is set in the near future and follows an elderly billionaire and philanthropist named Steve Battier. Steve arrives at RPG, a facility where a specialist named Mr. Chan explains the company's unique service. For a hefty price, they can restore youth by transferring neural data to a new brain and body. However, there's a catch. Someone must die in order for the brain to be replaced. Steve, undeterred, listens as Chan further explains that the new body with the old brain only lasts for 10 hours. Steve, along with 9 other terminally ill and wealthy seniors, is invited to participate in a game where they will experience life in younger bodies for 10 hours. The twist? Only one will survive. Though hesitant at first, Steve agrees, driven by his deteriorating health and the unbearable pain he experiences with each small movement. After confirming his participation, Steve chooses the body of a handsome young man, and the game begins. Steve awakens in his new body, lying in the grass among debris, meeting a girl in a white dress. Both are disoriented, unaware that their minds belong to elderly people. As they encounter others, a man in denim, a girl threatening him with a stick, a curly-haired man, and more, they slowly piece together their situation. Soon, they meet the rest of the players, a Chinese man, an Asian woman, a dark-skinned woman, and 2 blondes. Confusion reigns as none of them understand how they ended up there. Suddenly, Mr. Chan appears as a hologram, introducing himself as the game master. He explains the rules and shows holograms of the elderly people whose minds now inhabit the young bodies. These individuals include an actress, a singer, an African dictator, a lesbian activist, a Russian spy, a football player, a playboy, a Chinese oligarch, a Northern European princess, and of course, the humanitarian Steve. Each one's biography is displayed next to them. Mr. Chan then reveals that every hour, one participant must die, or the game will randomly select a victim. A player can kill another if they correctly identify whose brain inhabits their opponent's body. After the kill, the murderer must approach the hologram of the victim and touch it. If they choose the wrong hologram, they themselves will die. At first, the participants are in disbelief, but as they read the biographies, each begins to recognize their true identity. However, no one shares this information, as nobody wants to become the first target. Suspicion and aggression gradually build among them. A curly-haired man suggests they search for an escape route, and the others follow. They discover that the ruins are surrounded by a high-voltage fence, preventing their escape. The group discusses their options, trying to decide their next move. While tension simmers, the participant with Steve's brain remains hopeful, insisting that none of them are capable of murder. He proposes that they split up for the first hour to avoid any confrontations. A girl in a white dress follows Steve. When alone, she confesses that she doesn't want to kill anyone, and Steve admits that he feels the same, even saying he would rather die than take someone else's life. Moved by his honesty, they agree to conceal any personal details about themselves, even from each other. Despite this, they give in to their youthful bodies, attraction, and share a passionate kiss. Meanwhile, a young blonde man sharpens a stone into a weapon, jealously watching as a blonde girl seduces the curly-haired guy. They too indulge in the pleasures of their new bodies. Elsewhere, the Asian girl and the dark-skinned girl approach the fence, reminiscing about their past loves. As they kiss, the dark-skinned girl suddenly shoves the Asian girl away, suspecting that the latter is actually an elderly man in a woman's body. The argument escalates, and in a fit of suspicion, the dark-skinned girl pushes the Asian girl into the fence, killing her instantly with an electric shock. The dark-skinned girl then calls for help, looks at the clock, and flees the scene, unaware that Steve and his companion witnessed the entire event from the bushes. The dark-skinned girl returns to the hologram room and successfully identifies her victim as a famous football player with deviant desires, believing only such a person would choose to inhabit a woman's body. Meanwhile, a Chinese man secretly observes the whole process. After making her choice, the dark-skinned girl hides. When most of the participants regroup in the hall, the killer blends in, acting as though nothing happened. The group debates whether the Asian girl was murdered or if the game itself caused her death. Unable to come to a conclusion, they disperse once again. The dark-skinned girl then finds the girl with the stick in the bushes and proposes an alliance. Unaware that her new ally is the murderer, the girl with the stick decides to trust her. Meanwhile, the enraged blonde man grabs his sharpened stone and suddenly attacks the blonde girl. Both the guy in the denim jacket and the curly-haired man witness this and try to stop him from killing her. The blonde girl refuses to reveal whose brain is in her body, So the man drags her to the hologram room and begins a brutal interrogation. He breaks her hand and cuts her arm in a ruthless attempt to force the truth from her. As the others rush into the room, it's already too late. The blonde girl finally confesses that she was an actress, and the blonde man slits her throat. He chooses the hologram of the actress, but he is wrong. His victim was actually a singer. As a result, the game incinerates him, and his hologram, which belonged to an African dictator, disappears. Steve and his girlfriend flee the room, growing even closer. They begin to trust each other more, deciding to avoid the others altogether. They retreat to the bushes, where they share a moment of intimacy. Afterward, Steve falls asleep, giving his girlfriend a chance to try and learn his true identity. She hopes he'll say something revealing in his sleep that will allow her to kill him. While Steve is asleep in the game, he briefly wakes up in the real world. Mr. Chan approaches him and explains that there was a malfunction, but reassures Steve that he will soon wake up in his young body again. He promises that if Steve wins the game, he will stay young forever. Back in the game, while Steve sleeps, the girl in the white dress picks up a stick and prepares to kill him. However, Steve wakes up just in time and begins telling her about his dream. He explains that by killing each other, they are ending the lives of the real young people who own these bodies. But the girl refuses to listen and attacks him with the stick. In his panic, Steve thrusts the stick into her eye, fatally wounding her. She stumbles from the pain and falls into a nearby pool. During the fight, Steve realizes that she was the actress. Meanwhile, the dark-skinned girl gains the trust of the girl with the stick, leading her into an intimate moment. As they kiss, the dark-skinned girl suddenly tries to strangle her. However, the other girl quickly retaliates, wounding her arm with the stick and pushing her away. After his girlfriend's death, Steve returns to the hologram room and correctly chooses the actress's hologram. On his way out, he encounters the dark-skinned girl and threatens to kill her next, having witnessed her murder of the Asian girl. Terrified, she runs to the hologram room, where she meets the Chinese man. He confronts her, accusing her of the Asian girl's murder and seeing through her deception. Confident that she must be an actress, he pushes her to her death. He is utterly shocked to discover that she wasn't an actress after all. In a random guess, he correctly selects the hologram of the famous lesbian activist. Meanwhile, the curly-haired guy and the man in the denim jacket decide to carefully study the remaining elderly participants' biographies to plan their next kill. After reviewing some details, they conclude that the young man with Steve's brain is the humanitarian, and they make a plan to kill him. The girl with the stick, shaken after nearly being strangled, tries to talk to Steve. She tells him she doesn't want to become a murderer in order to survive. However, Steve has decided he can no longer trust anyone. Soon, the group spots the frightened Chinese man attempting to climb a tree to get over the fence. Steve, convinced that escape is impossible, throws a stone at the fence to test it. The stone bounces back due to the high voltage, confirming Steve's assumption. The Chinese man returns to the ground, puzzled as to why Steve chose to save him. At that moment, the curly-haired guy and the man in the denim jacket approach the fence. After witnessing Steve's act of kindness toward the Chinese man, they become certain that Steve is the humanitarian. They believe killing him would be a safe option. But Steve suggests an alternative. What if they stop killing altogether? He proposes they lay down their weapons for an hour to see if the game will still claim a life. Reluctantly, the others agree, and they all head to the pool to wait. While by the pool, Steve shares his experience of briefly waking up in the real world, explaining that this is not just a game, it's real murder. He also reveals that he didn't want to kill the actress, but had no choice in self-defense. Meanwhile, in the ruins, the dark-skinned girl briefly regains consciousness. Her hologram reappears in the room, but as the hour runs out, the game kills her. Since everyone else is by the pool, they are unaware of what just happened. Despite their truce, the group remains confused about the game's rules, and tensions rise again. The players begin to lose control and want to kill once more. The Chinese man threatens the last surviving girl, causing her to flee in terror and hide in the ruins. There, she finds a bonus, like in a video game. The Chinese man searches for her, convinced that she is the princess from a northern European country. When he finally confronts her, she points the gun she found at him. However, unsure of his true identity, she hesitates to kill him. Instead, she shoots him in the leg and attempts to interrogate him. But he realizes she can't touch the wrong hologram without dying, so he has no reason to tell her the truth. Frustrated, she decides to kill Steve first. The Chinese man climbs to the rooftop and spots the girl outside. In a moment of desperation, he shouts that no one will ever know his true identity, then leaps from the building. Confused, the girl heads toward the hologram room, but is suddenly knocked down by the guy in the denim jacket at the entrance. He takes the gun from her and points it at her. Just then, the hologram of the elderly Chinese oligarch disappears, revealing that the young Chinese participant was indeed the oligarch all along. The guy in the denim jacket doesn't really want to kill the girl. Instead, he propositions her for sex. She quickly realizes that he must be the playboy, but firmly refuses his offer. She then tells him that she already removed all the bullets from the gun and strikes him in the stomach with a piece of rebar. At that moment, Steve and the curly-haired guy enter the room. Steve grabs the gun, only to discover it's empty. The curly-haired guy proposes a deal to the girl. She gives him the bullets, and together, they'll kill Steve and the guy in the denim jacket. After that, they can spend their remaining hours together and play Russian roulette at the end. But the girl refuses to hand over the bullets, and Steve takes the opportunity to flee. The playboy, now weakened, begs the girl to stay with him until the end so he can finally enjoy her beauty. In his last moments, he sings a romantic song and tries to make light of his situation. Meanwhile, Steve throws the empty gun into the pool, silently picks up a broken bottle, and keeps the curly-haired guy at a distance. Steve, having a good read on people, has already figured out that the curly-haired guy is the Russian spy. He tries to mislead him without revealing too much about himself. Steve suggests they go back and check if anyone else is still alive. They return to the hologram room, where Steve informs the others that the gun is gone. Unable to stand by while the playboy suffers, Steve offers him help, but the playboy insists he's fine and dies with a smile. The girl selects the playboy's hologram and leaves the room. The curly-haired guy warns Steve that he'll come for him after he deals with the girl. But as he tries to leave, Steve pulls a shard of glass from his pocket and slashes the curly-haired guy's throat, confirming he was indeed the Russian spy. Now, only Steve and the princess remain. Steve slowly approaches her, assuring her that since they are both good people, they won't kill each other. He suggests they spend the rest of their time together, enjoying life's pleasures. He kisses her gently, taking the rebar from her hand, and as she relaxes, he swiftly cuts her throat with the bottle shard. The princess dies, and Steve returns to reality. Steve then asks Mr. Chan how much it would cost to stay young forever. The game master pretends to consider it before naming an exorbitant price. Without hesitation, Steve transfers the money. Feeling triumphant, Steve sees himself in his old clothes and happily gets into his car, completely convinced that he is now young and attractive. However, in reality, he remains an aging, decaying old man.